Episode 182 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
I myself am doing pretty well, although I have to admit it is boiling hot where I am. So I'm here in sort of central Serbia, and even I'm up in sort of hills and sort of, not in the highlands exactly, but you'd think it'd be a bit cooler here, but it's still like close to 40 degrees. I've got quite a good sweat on here, as you can see. Anyway, I'm going to keep it short today, okay? This is very much an episode in the style of Wham, Land. I'm determined to keep this one under 20 minutes long. This is particularly for those of you with Russian in your combination. Now, I know a lot of you are Russians who work in the Russian booth. I know you've got the English booth exam coming up next month in August, right? Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to organize a sort of Sunday at 6 coaching session for you. It's a bit tricky at the moment, finding people who are available middle of the summer and all that. But hopefully, maybe from this kind of episode, you can watch this and get some benefits, get some of this vocab. You sort of reverse engineer the episode, right? Because it's a Russian statement going into English. But hopefully, as I say, as the expression goes, you can reverse engineer it. Look at some of those expressions that I use in English, and then you can see for yourselves, when the speaker says that in English, I should say this in Russian. So that's what I'd advise you to do if you're Russian boothists. Anyway, like I say, I want to keep this episode down to a minimum 20 minutes, so let's bring it up immediately on the screen. I'll share the screen with you. So the way I'm going to do this is just a one-page text, but it's got quite a lot of nice little vocab in it. And the way... As you can see, I've made notes on the text. Now, it's from a couple of years ago, 16th September 2021, so it's before the war in Ukraine started, so just bear that in mind as we're going through it. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to just focus initially on the vocab, the notes that I've written in, okay, to explain my choices of the solutions I've gone for. And then at the end, I'm going to just quickly whip through it in the form of a site translation, just to give you an idea how I might do this kind of statement in real life, so to speak, in the booth. So this was, it was as you can tell from the title, 48th session of the Human Rights Council. So it was during a dialogue with the Special Rapporteur, Mr. Salvioli, Fabiano Salvioli. I think he's Argentinian. Now, he is the Special Rapporteur. His full title is the Special Rapporteur on the Promotion of Truth, Justice, Reparation, and Guarantees of Non-Recurrence. Now, here you'll see in the title, okay, that more or less covers this section here. Содействие установлению истины, правосудию, возмещению ущерба, гарантиям недопущения нарушения. Except for this last bit, so I don't know if his title has changed. This гарантиям недопущения нарушения. That would be, if you heard that right, guarantees for prevention of violations. So anyway, now his title is Guarantees of Non-Recurrence. So that would probably be гарантиям недопущения повторных нарушений. Maybe the повторных is just missing. But it's useful to know, okay, установление истины, promotion of truth. Okay, правосудие, justice is easy enough. Возмещению и ущерба, that in English is just one word, reparation. Obviously, if you don't know the exact equivalence, then you might find yourself saying compensation of damages, which would be okay. But for these kinds of things, it's always good to get the exact sort of name of a rapporteur, and if under these circumstances you would have it almost certainly in front of you, his statement, and you could just refer directly to it. So that's very bread and butter sort of stuff for those kind of things. When you have a rapporteur, make sure you've got his full title of the rapporteur, so you know who exactly he is, so that you don't fudge his official title. Okay, so the first vocab note that I've got here in the statement is skvoz prizmu. So I've put here, hopefully you can see that, lens, okay? I think lens sounds better than prism. You could say prism in English, right? I think we talk about seeing things through the lens of something. That comes more naturally to me in English. Now, get my wee pen out. Go red. Привлечение к ответственности. Okay, so in English, that's just accountability, just really one word. You don't have to and bringing them to account or bringing them to justice. So again, it's kind of it's a bit of a sort of set phrase, привлечение к ответственности, accountability. But so if you're a Russian speaker, if you're in the Russian booth and you hear accountability in this sort of context, you're probably wanting to give it, привлечение к ответственности is probably the best solution. Okay, vieja here, best solution. This is an important word that comes up all the time. Milestone, okay, you can see that there. So you can sometimes talk about a landmark, but I think here, because he's talking about the creation of the Nuremberg Tribunal, right, that really was a milestone. So, осудившего нацистов. I've given you a couple of solutions here for осудить. I think the most obvious is maybe to condemn, that condemned the Nazis, but obviously in courts of law, we often talk about finding the defendants, finding the accused guilty, finding them guilty. So I've given you that as well as an alternative. Да и за ее пределами. So в особенности в странах ЕС, да и за ее пределами. So the easiest way to do that is especially in EU countries and beyond. Okay, you don't need to go into any more details than that with да и за ее пределами, just and in the EU countries and beyond. Now this is an interesting one, okay. Стоят остро. Talking about the subject here is проблема. Проблема нацизма продолжает, к сожалению, стоять остро. Now, the problem here is I think an English speaker would generally say under these circumstances, the neo-Nazism continues, unfortunately, to be a major problem. Okay? We would structure the sentence that way, as neo-Nazism being the subject of the sentence. So here the subject of the sentence in Russian is проблема, okay? So you'd probably find yourself saying, as you're going along, the problem of neo-Nazism continues, unfortunately, стоят остро. Now, what would we say in English? Like, continues to be a big factor? I reckon if that was suddenly just presented to me, I'd be like, it continues to be a major, the problem continues to be a major issue. The problem continues to be a big factor, which are okay, but it sounds a bit clumsy. Which is why I think I've offered you this solution, I think, which actually I think sounds nice. The problem of neo-Nazism continues to rear its head. There's other. What else might we say in English? The problem of neo-Nazism doesn't show any signs of going away. That's something an English speaker might say. But again, that's a lot of words, a lot of syllables. So anyway, на контроле, держать данную тематику на контроле. Maybe a simpler solution here, maybe under review. Okay, to keep an eye, we urge the rapporteur to keep an eye on this issue. But also, I like a solution that I came across actually a couple of years ago in this same location was to have something on one's radar. So to keep this issue on his radar for на контроле. Героизация нацистов, okay, not heroization. I don't think that sounds English. So as you can see here, hopefully, glorification. Итьева пособников. This is, again, boilerplate vocabulary when it comes to the issue of glorification of Nazis. And then when you've got Nazis, you've got the people who worked with them, right? So the two standard solutions, perhaps, are their accomplices. They're collaborators, obviously. I think they use les collaborateurs. That was a big thing, in French, that word for example, has a special connotation. So I think you could use that here, collaborators. Their henchmen is another good one, I think, in English. Those who aided and abetted them. A bit verbose, that one. That sounds very nice in English, though. To aid and abet, that's a very sort of legalese expression in British English, right? Next one. Okay, so we go down to here. Okay, this is an interesting structure here. В отношении которых ранее учреждались трибуналы ad hoc. It's just interesting, the actual words individually aren't particularly difficult, but it's how you put that into nice English. So the countries from the Middle East, Southeast Asia, in other words, those countries, literally, in relation to whom there was the earlier creation of ad hoc tribunals. That sounds very clunky, right? So I thought maybe, you could say something like, which saw the creation of or the establishment of ad hoc tribunals. Going on, okay, spornym, весьма spornym, two sort of typical synonyms there. You can't actually see this one because I haven't properly scanned it. Okay, that should be divisive or controversial. You can't really go wrong with those two as solutions for sporny. Не стоило бы преувеличивать. Okay, it would be unwise to exaggerate. Okay, and you spoil a bit. It would be unwise. I think maybe the thing that first springs to mind whenever I hear state, it's like worth. It wouldn't be worth. Okay, that's why I've put here, if you can read it, that doesn't say net worth, it says not worth. If you want something really simple, I guess you could just say, we shouldn't do what? Преувеличивать. Exaggerate or overstate as another alternative. Again, always nice to have synonyms. И уж тем более неправильно полагать синергии национальной и международной системы правосудия. This is a tricky sentence. It's like, I had to think about this one. So, I mean, okay, this first bit, уж тем более неправильно. Nor would it be justified to, nor would it be fair to. Again, maybe it's actually a bit stronger. It's maybe, but уж тем более неправильно, and it would be even less justified, maybe to give it a bit more extra emphasis, even less justified. Now, what's difficult about this sentence is, that, okay, полагать, consider, that says consider, right? This is полагать синергии национальной и международной систем правосудия. Now, the problem here is that синергии is the instrumental, okay? So word for word, this reads as, it would be still even less justified to consider as a synergy of national and international system of justice the лицемерное решение, the hypocritical decision of the Ukrainian authorities on recognizing the jurisdiction of the ICC, but only for the 3-month period of interest to them. Now, the problem is that an English speaker would say this bit first generally. You know, they would say полагать лицемерное решение. Generally, an English speaker would say it would be even less justified to consider the hypocritical decision of the Ukrainian authorities to recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC as a synergy of the national international justice systems. So it's just the syntax. It's a bit confusing in Russian. You have to sort of really make sure that you throw in this as to consider as. So it would be even less justified to consider as a synergy of national international system of justice the hypocritical decision of the Ukrainian authorities to recognize the jurisdiction, etc. And then we've got a couple, as I say, лицемерное, I'll give you a couple of solutions there. Hypocritical or two-faced, you can just go with two-faced, right? Very important institution of this, the Международный уголовный суд, okay, the International Criminal Court, which you can pretty much revert immediately to calling the ICC. Everyone should know what the ICC is, right? And I think in Russian they call it the mus sometimes, mus, I believe. Okay, and that's basically, that's pretty much the interesting vocabulary then in that short text. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give you a quick run through as a sight translation to see how I would do it under Booth conditions. So it's remember, it's the Human Rights Council, so it's a president. So, Madam President, обратили внимание, just say we noted. You don't have to, by the way, you don't have to say it caught our attention that, okay? Just we noted that in his report, Special Rapporteur, covering the period after World War II through the lens of the evolution of accountability mechanisms, ignores a key milestone, such a key milestone as the creation of the Nuremberg Tribunal, which condemned the Nazis. Meanwhile, in modern day and contemporary Europe, particularly in EU countries and beyond, the problem of neo-Nazism continues unfortunately to rear its head. In that regard, we urge Mr. Salvioli to keep this theme on his radar, particularly when it comes to glorification of the Nazis and their collaborators. We note that Mr. Salvioli's report focuses on the situation with establishing truth and justice in the republics of the ex-Yugoslavia, the African states, Latin America, and to a lesser degree, the countries of the Middle East and Southeast Asia. In other words, those countries which saw the creation of ad hoc tribunals. Now here, we would like to recall that the experience of work of such organs in many cases has proven very controversial. In other words, it would not be appropriate to exaggerate their value as an instrument of international justice. And it would be still less justified, it would be even less justified to consider as a synergy of national and international systems of justice, the two-faced decision of the Ukrainian authorities to recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC, but only for the 3-month period of interest to them. That example should be included under item 92 of the report, paragraph 2092 of the report, on practices of double standards during transitional processes. Процессов переходного периода, that was transitional processes. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, that's, I think, how I would break that little text down. So some interesting bits of vocabulary there. I went with the third option for не стоило бы. It would be inappropriate to. It would be another one. It would not be advisable. It would be unadvisable to exaggerate their value as an instrument of international justice. And that's pretty much it for today's episode. I think this is one of the shortest episodes I've done in a long time. I'm pretty confident I've managed to keep it under the 20-minute mark. So I've got some more Russian ones coming for you. Again, from Russian into English, but hopefully one of the ones I've got from you is a Russian presentation to the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which is a really good set-piece text. Lots of key vocab that you may run into, certainly be it in exams, on the job, etc. Guys, if you've enjoyed the episode, if you've learned some new words, tell me what words you've learned. Stick it in the comments. Come on, I always appreciate the comments, okay? Or tell me if you've got any solutions of your own for some of the expressions that have popped up here today. And yep, like, share, subscribe, and all that remains to be said is episode 182 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the Interpretation Station.